Guys, it's me, Peekaboo25 here, and today I have another park battle. And this is Cedar Point's first park battle versus Kings Island, which is 1-0 with a winning record over Six Flags Great America. Which, that's probably my most controversial park battle, but yeah. And just a little note, if any of you watch Coast Studios, I've shouted him out multiple times. I know he's done this, but I noticed quite a few flaws. He may have excluded a couple things or a couple really bizarre matchups, like Vortex versus Gatekeeper. It doesn't make any sense. That's completely one-sided. So I'm going to take it on my own spin, have class, and use my recent experience from Saturday or Sundays, this last Sunday's, Father's Day's 2016's voyage to Cedar Point to prove everything. And it's 2016. Time has passed. So, without further ado, let's start. First up, and as always for me, it's the B&M Inverts. We have Raptor, a old-fashioned, old-style, classic, intense B&M invert. And then we have Banshee, the newest B&M invert. That is more of a graceful, smoother experience. And it has superior stats, superior inversions, and it just definitely has age as a factor. Just smoother, longer, faster, stat superior. Raptor is quite a bit snappy, but I still love it. It's so intense, but it's quite snappy. Especially the Cobra roll. Kind of whip your head a little bit around. Up next is the mine trains. We have Cedar Creek Mine Ride, which probably the best part about it is that it goes over a lake. But other than that, I kind of just did it for the credit. And Adventure Express, which is probably one of the best themed mine trains in the States. It's also a very large mine train. 63 feet is quite large for a mine train, but the layout kind of just winds around, and it's a bit rough, but honestly, Cedar Creek Mine Ride, being older, is rougher, snappier, and just Adventure Express is superior layout, theming, some height and length and whatever, all that. Adventure Express takes it. The blue wooden coasters, which this is another matchup I kind of had to stretch for, but I could see a few similarities. Both PTC, both smaller coasters at the park. This is Blue Streak versus Woodstock Express. Granted, one might be considered a kiddie coaster, but still. Blue Streak will take it for just having superior stats. Simple as that. And also, I wasn't on Woodstock Express, so I can't tell you firsthand how it was. I don't go on kiddie coasters for credit. I might go back here and ride this. Maybe, I don't know, maybe 2017 with that new GCI possibly. I might cover that in a later video. Yeah, Blue Streak, superior stats. It just does everything better, and it's packed with airtime, unlike this thing. This thing, I think, is a figure 8 layout. Blue Streak is an out and back, and it's packed with airtime. It's a solid wooden coaster, especially for running 50 plus years of age. Suspended coasters. The Bat is one of the best suspended coasters out there, competing with like Ninja, Eagle's Fortress, the rest in peace that one. But basically competing with Ninja for best suspended coaster. The Bat is fantastic. Iron Dragon, not so much. It's a relaxed, laid-back layout, barely any height elevation changes. It's mostly just winding around. It goes over a little pond, well, that's nice, but the Bat just has all the adrenaline and all the thrill, just all of that, compared to the family aspects to Iron Dragon. And also the Bat's smoother. I noticed you kind of hit your head around a little bit on Iron Dragon. It was the first suspended coaster from Arrow, the first modern one, and the first one that's still around. The Bat, it was a return, and enough on history. Let's move on. I'm trying to make this short. Large wooden coasters. This is a no contest situation. I just got off a mean streak on my first ride Saturday. It was not as bad as I thought it would. I'll get a review up probably during the summer, but I can say much easier. The Beast is much better. It might be a bit rough. It might be a bit trimmed to death. A bit trimmed to death. Wow, that statement. And but it's just a classic. The Beast is just a classic. It's got 7,359 feet of track, making it the longest coaster, or the longest wooden coaster in ever. It's built in-house, Kings Island exclusive. This is just a classic wooden coaster. Mean Streak has got supports on the bases, on the footers, and if you've been following it, there's probably so many theories flying around that this thing's future demise. I heard it's closing in July. So, let's just say I may have gotten my last ride on Mean Streak. My first and my last. Because yeah, there's that this thing might be RMC'd by the end of 2016. Next up is the Steel Kiddie Coasters. Wilderness Run was Intamin's first coaster. It's very historically significant. Granted, I liked it when I was Junior Gemini, but I'm not going to be that picky. Just the Great Pumpkin Coaster, yeah, there's not much going for it. I mean, it's borderline a powered coaster, but I could probably, if at the first height, I could probably stand up and be taller than it. Maybe not. I probably like 10 feet. It's probably like 10 feet, but I'm pretty sure two of myself will be taller than the Great Pumpkin Coaster. And it might have some decent airtime, because, it's all that, but I'm not going to try and glorify it. Wilderness Run will take it, just for the historical significance and superior stats. It's got double the length, it goes 6 miles per hour, but mostly just for the historical significance and the length. Up next are the Aero Loopers. Granted, there's not a lot of Aero Loopers that compare to Vortex standards. It's a very large Aero Looper. The only one that's still standing that is pretty easily comparable to it is Viper at Magic Mountain. But I just have to compare these Aero Loopers anyway. So, yeah. The Vortex just brings so much more to the table. Having a Batwing, 2 vertical loops, none of those painful, what you call airtime hills, because Corkscrew's got one of those and it just sucks. It's tall, much taller, somewhat faster, much longer by like 1,800 feet. Double the inversions. It's just superior all around, but it's only worth 1 point because, it's an Aero Looper. The only good one out there is like Tennessee Tornado, and that was when they had computer alignment technology. Yeah. Racing coasters. We have Gemini and the Racer. The Racer is a PTC out and back wooden coaster racer, and Gemini is a hybrid family coaster racer. Gemini has the stats in its favor, but it's pretty bumpy. I remember the drop, you're literally being thrown back and forth in your seat. The turns, you might kind of be shaking around a little bit. It's just pretty clunky. Gemini, it's also the most forgettable coaster in the park. And the Racer is packed with airtime. It's not very smooth. It's pretty smooth. It definitely has a more competitive element than Gemini. It just feels more competitive for some reason. I don't know. This might be my most controversial decision in the coasters, but I personally think the Racer is better than Gemini. So yeah, currently looking like Cedar Point's in a big deficit. However, this is the best park in the nation, so we'll see if this thing can stage a comeback. Next up, we have Steel Kiddie Coasters, and these are the larger ones from like Wilderness Run and Great Pumpkin Coaster. And we have a Vekoma suspended family coaster and Woodstock Express, a Vekoma junior coaster. These things are kind of not very comparable, but I like Woodstock Express more. It's got lap bars, it's got that twister layout. And this Steel Kiddie Coaster Vekoma Hang and Bang right here. Hang and Bang's in its name, implying roughness. Cedar Point will take it for the kiddie coaster. If this thing had lap bars, I think if it has lap bars, then this thing would have won. But I'm pretty sure that this Flying Ace Aerial Chase has over-the-shoulder restraints. Correct me if I'm wrong. It won't make a big difference anyway, because it's half a point. Launch coasters. This is a tough comparison. I think I've done this before with Fiesta Texas and Great America. But I personally think that Premier Ride Spaghetti Bowls are better than Intamin Impulse coasters. Granted, these things are far superior in stats. It's like a whole 20 miles per hour faster, so much taller, facing directly upward and facing the ground. But personally, I think Flight of Fear is better. It's got much more length, actually features legitimate inversions. It's thematic, and the kick in the bucket there, it's completely enshrouded in darkness, and it has lap bars. If this thing did not have lap bars, I would have easily picked Wicked Twister. So I remember hearing over-the-shoulder restraints on these Spaghetti Bowl models are hell. But I feel like that just Flight of Fear's got a little extra oomph to put it over. The complete darkness, disco elements, thematic elements all across the queue and station. There's a lot more going for it. Wicked Twister is a good coaster in my top 35. But it's kind of another forgettable ride at the park. It's consider it's probably like number 7 or 8 in the park when an impulse would be pretty high. Would be pretty high in a smaller park. And Flight of Fear is probably it's my third favorite coaster at the park, behind Diamondback and Banshee. Next up, and finally, we have the hypercoasters. No contest here. Diamondback is one of the best hypercoasters in the nation. Magnum XL 200 is the first hypercoaster ever, and it's really clunky. This thing has a lot of airtime. I will give it that. This airtime on this thing is ridiculous. Problem is, the lap bar is so bad that it crushes your thighs in. It's nearly as bad as Sky Rush. The restraints aren't tight on you, but the airtime hills crush your thighs in. Feels like they're rubbing up against your bone. I came off this thing with small bruises. Diamondback is just fantastic. Perfect restraints, perfect, really good layout, splashdowns, twisters, and airtime hills galore. Diamondback is fantastic. Magnum is not so much. However, Cedar Point has so many extra coasters that are so high of quality that if I left these things out, everyone would just yell at me. Millennium Force, world's first Giga Coaster, my personal favorite ride. Gatekeeper, largest B&M wing coaster, and right alongside the beach going through the entrance. Yeah, that thing is definitely good, but not as good as some of the other rides. Maverick, underrated Intamin Blitz coaster. This thing is magnificent, it's wild, it's absolutely intense and insane. I actually recently put this thing over Iron Rattler because it's so good, so intense. Rougarou, B&M Floors coaster, one of the more iffy things in the park because it can be a bit rough, a bit headbangy, but still, it's a decent ride. Top Thrill Dragster, first Stratocoaster, or first complete circuit Stratocoaster. Recently received the repaint. This thing is intense beyond all belief. Got my first ride on it, and I was not disappointed. And Valravin, new for 2016, B&M Dive Coaster. And does not disappoint. It has all the dive coaster records. Possibly for until next year or whatever. All that stuff. And that brings the score up to 16-13. Now Cedar Point's back in the lead. However, Kings Island has 3 extra coasters themselves. Firehawk, a Vekoma Flying Dutchman, Invertigo, a Vekoma Boomerang Invertigo model, and Backlot Stunt Coaster, a Premier Rides family launch coaster. Themed to an action movie. Because I don't know which movie it was originally themed to, but it's themed to some sort of action movie. I think like The Italian Job or something. And that basically evens up the score, 16-17. Now we get to the more technical elements. But first, the flat rides. Drop towers, we have Power Tower versus Drop Tower Scream Zone. And Drop Tower Scream Zone it's one of the best drop towers in the nation. It's ridiculously tall. It is very forceful. It spins on the way up so you get a different experience every time. Granted, Power Tower is pretty good as well. S&S, like 300 feet tall. It has 2 different experiences, the standard drop and the launch tower, or the bounce tower, what do you want to call it. That all just 2 different experiences, 4 towers meaning for higher capacity, but no, you got to give it to Drop Tower Scream Zone. It's much better. Now we have Frisbees, and I'm going to stir up some controversy in a boiling bucket here. I'm going to give this to Max Air, and only Max Air. These things are pretty much exactly the same, but when I first came off Delirium, I was disappointed. This thing does not run at full juice. And if it does, you don't feel it. Max Air, you're running it at full juice. 10-2 or possibly even more. Going faster, taller, maybe. It's run at full juice. Delirium, I feel like, was run at like 3/4 power. It's nowhere near as memorable as experience as Max Air. Having ridden both, I can say this safely. And having ridden both in the same year, I can definitely say that safely. Delirium is still fantastic, but Max Air is one of the best flat rides in the nation. Delirium, it's kind of the same thing, same concept, but they need to operate this at a more extremely. This thing is not run at full juice. Windseekers, both of these things are exactly the same. I will not call one of them better here. They're both 300 feet tall, both Mondial. Granted, when I went in 2015, Windseeker was down. These things are always down, but when I just got a Windseeker on Sunday, last visit, so they're both pretty much the same. I feel like Kings Island has run for a bit longer, but I'm not gonna trust my memory on that. I try to remember the coasters more than the flat rides, unless it's Max Air Delirium, because I cannot express my disappointment enough. So yeah, that's a draw there, both 1 point. And we have extra flat rides at each park. I remember seeing that most people that are doing this park battle, most people leave out Boo Blasters on Boo Hill. And it kind of disappointed me, because it's a shooting dark ride. It's kind of like Justice League. It's got a decent thrill. But it's more animatronics instead of 4D. However, you can't leave off Skyhawk. And S&S Scream and Swing. This thing was unfortunately down for the last 2 visits when we were at the area of the park. It was back up in like 30 minutes, so yeah. So yeah, the score is now 19-25. Now that we've covered all the rides, the score is a lot more even, and we're going to be starting to go into the more technical elements. First up, the family rides. 5-point category. This was originally worth 2 points, but I could not figure out enough sense that all the family rides combined will be worth less than a Hyper or Giga coaster, or a Star coaster in the park, because this is what attracts all the kids. If it was just a roller coaster park, you'd only be attracting enthusiasts. Cedar Point is by far one of the most balanced parks out there, and in my definition, has 48 family rides, 21 more than Kings Island's 27. It is absolutely phenomenal how much they have. They have so much for families. They have so much to offer. The kids here will have a blast. Elderly people will have a blast if they don't want to go on the coasters. Coaster enthusiasts will have a blast, of course. This park is so balanced. Kings Island, it has an acceptable amount, but I can say most of their family rides are herded into Planet Snoopy or Camp Snoopy or whatever. So, yeah. And now we have the prices. The one-day tickets and the at-the-door tickets, 1 day online and 1 day at-the-door tickets, are just $1 off for each. However, what really makes this different is the cheaper season passes. We have standard season passes, the lowest you can get, because I don't think too many people are going to buy gold. If the standard season passes were the same thing, then I would go to the gold or the platinum or whatever the next level up is, and keep going up until I find a noticeable difference. But at the lowest level season pass, I found that Kings Island is a whole $12 cheaper on that. They're both pretty ridiculous for season passes. Six Flags offers season passes for a lot cheaper, but I'm not gonna compare Six Flags and Cedar Fair here. I'm just gonna say Kings Island has better season passes and cheaper ones. Now we have extra included attractions. As you should know, Cedar Point is located on a peninsula jetting into Lake Erie, and Lake Erie is water. When you're surrounded by water, there's a beach. And when you have a large peninsula with a beach, you can access the beach, and you can swim in the beach as an alternative to the water park there. And it's included with park admission. Granted, you can rent jet skis and parasails and all that. So it gives Cedar Point 2 extra points for being all this. Appearance. I'm going to say Cedar Point is one of the most naturally beautiful parks. Like, kind of the same reason for the peninsula. And if you're looking at the right coaster, like Windseeker, the view is amazing. Millennium Force at the right angle, the view is amazing. Some of these views are ridiculous in these coasters. You can see for miles upon miles of water, and even wave to the Canadians on certain ones. It's absolutely fantastic. Granted, Kings Island, it's landlocked. It has some decent theming and old-timey stuff, but no, you can't beat Cedar Point. It's right up there with Six Flags Fiesta Texas and the Quarry interaction. Now we have operations. I mean, Cedar Point books it on dispatches. Cedar Point is known for booking it. Their operations are very fast. I mean, the only coaster I was stacked on for a little while, I was stacked on for one train for Bowervent. I was stacked pretty long on Blue Streak. Blue Streak was pretty slow for operations. Maverick started to get a bit clogged up when I got off the ride. I was stacked for 2 whole loadings. I got off the second loading. I mean, granted, they can load 2 trains at once on Maverick. They have all sorts of things, but Kings Island's a bit slower. Like, getting certain rides of the notorious things, such as Diamond Stack. Because I remember all 3 trains can be stacked on Diamondback at once, which is kind of sad. However, Cedar Point, to offset it, has a nasty habit of letting rides go down, sometimes several rides a day, sometimes several times a day. Skyhawk was down when I was there. Max Air went down this year, so I couldn't get on it. I got on Max Air like 5 times last year, so I'm good. Max Air was down most of the day, but right as I was exiting the park, boom, Max Air back up for some reason. Valravin went down for about an hour, which that kind of sucks. But I was on it in the morning, like 30 minutes after the park opened, so I got to go on Valravin, and it's fantastic. That's probably gonna be my next video. Get a review up for Valravin, so stay tuned. And this, my friends, is the end of the category. Cedar Point has staged a massive comeback. Congratulations. Kings Island is my final thoughts. Kings Island is one of the highest quality parks I've been to. All of their rides are superior in comparison to other ones. One of the best inverts, one of the best inverts, one of the best hypers, one of the best wooden coasters, one of the best some pretty unique coasters like Invertigo and Firehawk, Flight of Fear. I think it's some very unique and high quality rides. However, Cedar Point has a few rides that are phenomenal, one of a kind. Millennium Force, Maverick, Valravin, Gatekeeper, all those phenomenal rides that will outclass pretty much every other one in the category. And it has a perfect setting, tons of small details, and it's just a very balanced experience for parks attendees. And I gotta give props to Cedar Point's massive comeback that proves the little things do matter. You might have low quality roller coasters with the exception of a select few. Like Maverick might be the best in comparison, and Gatekeeper and Valravin might be the best in comparison, but they're specific. And you also got to give the fact that Cedar Point has 17 roller coasters compared to Kings Island's 13 or 14. And just when all the coaster categories pass, I mean, Cedar Point might lose out in the coaster categories. They're trying to improve it, but they'll lose out in the coaster categories a few times. But when the technical elements come in, they just take all of the points. And you just got to give some exclusive Cedar Point experiences, like Maverick, Millennium Force, Gatekeeper, Valravin, exclusive Cedar Point experiences. Something you can't really find much place else. You can't really find another Maverick or another Millennium Force very well. Can't really find those. It's a one-of-a-kind experience at Cedar Point. Little things do matter, and congrats, Cedar Point. You are better than your Sohio cousin. If you're wondering what Sohio is, it's my coaster park region theory. I might get a video up on that. Basically, dividing the United States based off of home parks. And Kings Island is located in Sohio, and Cedar Point is located in Norhio. If Geauga Lake was still around, then it'd be Central Ohio, because I couldn't come up with a clever name for that. But no, Geauga Lake's down. So sorry to end on a kind of a sad note. But anyway, this has been Cedar Point versus Kings Island. I really hope you were able to sit the whole way through to see Cedar Point's massive comeback. If the family rides weren't worth 5 points, Kings Island would have took it. Well, actually, I think Cedar Point wouldn't have. I think actually Cedar Point would have still took it. So it would have been 21 to 25, 22.5 to 21, 23 to 22, 22.5. And then Cedar Point's appearance. And yeah, so even with, the family ride 5 points definitely really helped. Cedar Point would have taken it regardless. Sorry for the extra math at the end. I'm pretty sure you're still not around for the little intermission at the end. But if you are, guys, I really hope you enjoyed. Expect a few more videos to come up, such as my regional theories, and most importantly, my Valravin review. I've got some good notes in the coaster, and I've got a lot of good memories about that. I will be back with that in just probably another few days, probably early next week. I'll try to aim it for that. And anyway, guys, I really hope you enjoyed, and as always, peace.